Hey, it's the Cheapskate. This is going to be the last video in this series for the RGB pixel lights. I do finally have everything working. I've got 3 boxes running the house. The very last box that I put up is the one I'm going to show how to do in this video, how to program it with Vixenlights. I couldn't find a video that told me everything I needed to know, so I spent hours and hours and hours figuring out how to do this. So if I've said anything that someone disagrees with, send me a comment. If I think you're right when I get done reading it, I will change this video. Because this is all what I was able to mostly just figure out on my own. So let's get started here. And don't forget, I can always use a like. Let's get started. Let's get started. I'm going to show you a picture of the front of my house. I'm using 3 boxes to control the lights on the house. One of them sits on this corner. It takes care of the peak over the garage, the little window here, this garage door, a corner, and on the side of the house there's a garage window, and then the roof line going down the side of the house. The second one's behind this bench. It takes care of this corner, takes care of the rest of this roof line going back to the house, this door, this window, and the 2 arches here, the one on the outside of the brick and the one inside right beside the door. The last one is the one I'm going to show you now. It's behind this bush. It'll take care of both corners, the roof line, the line going back to the back of the house, the 2 windows on the side of the house, a corner at the back edge of the house, and this window. 8 things in all. Now as you put your lights up, remember you can't use more than 170 lights on any one plug. And you're better off keeping it below that if you can, because 170 starts stretching it out and the end lights may not look quite right because they won't get enough voltage. So let's get started here. First thing I'm going to do is go to my E682. I showed you in one of the last videos there how to change the address, how to get it up. So you want to first be on unicast. Secondly, because this is the 3rd one, all the universe numbers have to be unique. And so since this is the 3rd one, my numbers are going to be 25 to 36. So if I can, there. So change it to 25, 26, 27. I know this is kind of repetitive, but just stick with me here. 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, and 36. Now I'm going to update my universe numbers. Alright, now you have to update any time that you mess with this. So always remember that. That's why there's update buttons on everything. Each time you mess with any one line, update it. Now that my universes are all individually numbered and they're unique, because my first box is 1 to 12, my second box 13 to 24, this is the 3rd box, so it's 25 to 36. And don't forget to update. We're not going to be doing anything down here yet until we get the lights all up and counted. So we're going to switch over now to Vixen, and let me bring up this here picture first. You can see that I have lights across this peak that I called peak 1, going from this corner down the side of the house on the soffit. I called that peak 2 because they're both kitchen and it's all one line to me. Then I have 2 kitchen corners, a left and a front, and a right and a front. And then I have a window on the side of the house. Let me get the other picture. I have 2 windows, and I have a corner back here. So there's 8 different things plugged into this box. You can see a little corner of the box sticking up here. I've got it behind the bush. So what we're going to do is we're going to go back to the front. And this right here, as I say, is Kitchen Peak 1. So I'm going to add it first. I'm going to set up display. I'm going to go to a generic numbered group, add it, and this I'm going to call Kitchen Peak 1. And if you want to know why I'm calling all this stuff kitchen, well, that's what that room in the house is. So Kitchen Peak 1 has 114 pixels. And I'm going to OK it that it has 114. Now I have to change the color handling because each pixel has 3 light bulbs inside of it. A red one, a blue one, and a green one. So I have to go down here, go to color handling, click on the configure button, and then I'm going to choose the bottom one, which says they can be any color. They are full RGB and mixed to make any color. And my order on these lights is red, green, and blue. So I'll OK that. I'll OK this color setup box, and you can see that 114 is now turned into 342. 3 for each pixel. My next one, and when you're doing this, I'm going to bring up a picture here first so you can see. This is my E86 controller. This is group 1. It's 4 plugs. Group 2 is 4 plugs. Group 3 the same. Group 4 the same. They're numbered 1 1, 1 2, 1 3, and 1 4. And then 2 1, 2 2, and so on for the 4 groups. So my first plug for this Kitchen Peak 1, I'm going to place it in 1 1. My second thing, and this is where it gets tricky, and if somebody out there thinks that I'm saying something wrong here, please send me a note, a comment, and if what I hear from you seems right to me, I will amend this video. But for now, I'm going to show you how I've managed to get things to work. So my next one, a generic numbered group again, I'm going to add, and this one is going to be the kitchen corner left. I'm just going to call it KCL. And this one has 29 pixels. I'm going to OK it. I'm going to color handling while it's highlighted. To color handling, configure, make sure that this is still highlighted here. It can be any color. OK it, OK the box, and that 29 now turned into 87. So that's 29 times 3. So now that one is going into 2 1. And now I'm done with group 1 because the first one is higher number of count of pixels than the second one. This was 114, this one's 29. If you had more than one that were the same, like if I had 214s, I could put one here, and then use one that has less pixels in group 3-1 or group 1-3. So unless they're the same number of pixels, you have to put more on the very first one, less on the second one. And you have to do that for all 4 groups. So my next one, it's a generic group again. This is going to be Kitchen Peak 2. This is KP2. And this one has 129 pixels. I'm going to OK it. Color handling. OK that. And that 129 turned into 387. Now there's a reason why I didn't put those two together, with this one being the first one. Let me get the next one on here and then we'll get the picture and I'll show you why. The next one is my kitchen corner right. And it, once again, is the same as the other one. It's 29 pixels. OK it. Color handling. OK. OK. 29 turned to 87. Now, the reason that I did not put Kitchen Peak 2 here as the very first one with Kitchen Peak 1 behind it, I'll show you the reason for that. On this side of the house, like I say, this is number 2 going down. The number 1 is the one in the front. And you can, on your E86B, reverse certain plugs. Any of the 4 on each of the groups. And my box is here, and because the entire flow of my house I have going left to right, so the roof lines go this way, all of them. Because this box is behind this tree, that means it's connected on here and it's going back this direction. So this one I need to reverse. If I put this one first, that's 114. Or 129, I mean. 114 in the front. So if I put this one on first, and then when I go to the E86, or E682, and I start putting in my lights right here, my pixels, you only get one box for pixel length. So the highest one would have to go there, the 129. And then in that same group, I would have one that was 114. I'm hoping this is making sense to you, because if I tried to reverse number 2, the problem is that this assigns numbers for the addresses. And you'll start out with 129. And so it's going to look at, if you're using 2 outputs, it's going to take 129 times 2. And that's how many addresses it's going to assign. So when you reverse that second one, you're going to have lights that aren't going to light up at the end of it, because it's starting from an imaginary count out there that is not there. We actually only have 114. So you're better off, anytime you can, simply use 2 that the first one has a higher pixel count than the second one, move to the next group. So that's why I started with this one and then used a corner. So the Kitchen Peak 2 on that side is the 129. Then it has 29 on this one. So my next one, kitchen window front. That's the front of the house, KWF. And the window in the front of my house has 61. OK it. Color handling, configure. OK it, OK it. And the 61 turns to 183. Next one is my kitchen window on the side, but the front of the house. Kitchen window side front. And this has 58. Which you notice is less than that one there, which was 61. So long as, like I say, of each group, the second one is less than the first one, you'll be good to go. So I'll OK it. Now we're going to configure it, OK it, OK it, and your 58 turns to 174. So hang in there, we're almost there, only got 2 to go. This is the kitchen window on the side rear. And it has 44. Okay. Color handling. Okay. Okay. 44 turns to 132. And the very last one is the kitchen corner rear. And it has 26. Okay. Color handled. 26 turns to 78. And those are now my 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So these are the counts with the pixels, and you can see that as long as each one afterwards, the first one's 342, the next one's 87. So it's less than the first one. Now on group 2, the first one is 387, the second one is 87. So it's less than the first one. So this is what you want. So on the side of the house, the corner that I've been talking about is right here. And this is the kitchen side window, front and side window rear. You can call these anything that you want as long as you know which one is which to you. Now we're going to add the controller. So this is a streaming ACN E131. Oh, let's try it again. And add it. And this one is going to be 208 because that's the number I use on the E86B. That one, the address is 208, so I do this so that I know which box is which. And now we need to know how many total outputs. Well, what you have to do is, starting at the beginning, I'm just going to cancel that for a second. Starting at the beginning, write them down. 342, 87, and just keep adding them up till you get all the way to the bottom. Or you can also just come over here, highlight them all, and that'll tell you how many patch points there are, 1470. So that's how many outputs I need on the new one. So let's open it back up. 208, 1470. Okay. Now it has 1470 outputs, and this has 1470 patch points. Now before we configure this, and you do that by just right clicking and left click on configure, and your configuration box comes up. But before we do that, we need to know our universe numbers. So I'm going to close this up. You always remember to OK it first before you close it up. That way any changes don't disappear on you. Close Vixen. Now I'm going back to the E682. And what we're going to do on the outputs of 1-1 to 1-4, we used 2. Remember, 1-1 and 1-2. So I'm going to change that 4 to a 2. We only use 2 outputs there. And my biggest one was the 114. 114. It's starting on universe 25. So that's right. So I'll go over, and because this one is the first one, I can reverse that order on this one. So it will follow that left to right pattern that I use. I also use bottom to top on the corners, but everything else is left to right. So I'm reversing this one, and that's on the very first plug, 1 1, because this would be plug 1 2, 1 3, 1 4. So I'm going to reverse the first one, and I'm going to update it. Now you can see that it took the universes, because it takes 114 twice and adds it up. And so that way it adds up addresses that far. That's why it goes all the way to universe 26, 174. So we actually have to go past that now. And so the next one is going to be starting on universe 27. So I'm going to change this to 27. This is our group 2. This is where it starts. We use 2 plugs on it. And you always want to make sure you got your lights, whatever they happen to be. Mine are 2811s, so make sure that that's up in these menus. You don't want any of this other stuff if you're using a 2811. So the plug that went into 1 1, like I said, was the high count, so it's 129. And it's group size 1, starts on 27. Nothing's being reversed, so I'll update it. Then on number 3 group, we use 2 plugs. The one with the most is 61, and it's always the first one. And this has to start, because you can see that this one here ended in universe 28, so we need to start on 29. And we update. Now the last one, we use 2 again. Because as I said, the only way you can use 3 and 4 is if 2 of them were the same length. If you had 2 of them the same length and they were both 114, then you could use 3 outputs. You could have 2 of them 114 and then 1 less. So we use, down here, we use 2. This pixel count is 44, because the second one is the 26, so 44. This starts on universe 30, because this one ended on 29, so we have to start on 30, and we'll update. At this point, write down your start universes, 25, 27, 29, and 30 for me. Whatever yours is what it is. So write these down, because that's what we need in order now to configure the rest of Vixen on setup display. Just don't forget to update each line as you go, because if you try to fill it all in, as soon as you click one of them, it's only going to update that line. The others are going to go back to what they were. So be sure to do that each time. I'll put a little video here at the end of what the house looks like with the lights lit up and the 3 boxes operating them. Now, you also have one other thing that you can do. This box here that says null pixels. On the front of my house, I have this peak up here. It starts here down to the roof line. My box is sitting here, so I ended up with about 40 feet of wire going across the roof line there and then connecting on right here. That was too much. The data line just wasn't carrying the information there. Now, I still had enough voltage, but the data line wasn't cutting it. So what I had to do was cut the line about halfway between this box and that peak, so there's about 20 feet on each side, and solder in 1 pixel. Now once you do that, on here you can tell it that you have 1 pixel. It's a null pixel. You do not want it lighting up. So that's going to be the first one in the line that it finds. And then it'll start on the rest of them. So by doing this and then updating it, it knows that that first one, it's not supposed to light up at all. But by having it in there, each of these pixels has a computer chip in it. And what it does, it picks up the data and then it amplifies it and sends it to the next one. So once I did that, I'm going to change this back to 0 because I don't need it on this one. Once I did that, then that peak up there worked just fine. So you can use that little trick too of adding a null pixel if you've got one that's not working right so far as the data. Now if it's the voltage, you'll have to run a new wire up and hook it into it somewhere to up the voltage again to get something to work if you're too far away from the box. That's why you've got to be as close as possible. Now the last thing I'm going to do is try to have you understand the channel count. When you're figuring these channels up, and these are what they are, the addresses that this is assigning to each pixel. Here, because we have 2 outputs and the longest one's 114, but you only get 1 box to put in a pixel length. So that's why the second one has to be less or equal. But you take 114 times 2, that gives you 228. Then you take that times 3 pixels, or 3 lights inside each pixel, and that gets you up to 684. So if we go to Vixen, set up display, when we were configuring this, the size can never be higher than 510. That is the number if you had 170 pixels plugged into one plug. It cannot handle more than 170. And if you add that together, that comes out to 510. So the size here can never be more than 510. If it is, then you would simply write the 510, and in our case, when I took 114 times 2 and then times 3, it comes out to 684. So the first one would be 510, and the second one would be 174. That way it comes out to 684 when you add the two together. Then you would move to the next universe. So I hope that makes sense, because when we go back here to the E682 page, you can see that with our two outputs, 114 pixels times the 2, then times 3, the first channel would be 25, and it would use all 510 of the address points. And then it would move to universe 26. And there is the other 174. So if you add 510 and 174, you get your 684. So that's how the channel count works. That's why on the two that I started out with, I did not put the peaks together, peak 1 and peak 2. Even though the peak 1 is less, I could have put the peak 2 first and then try to reverse the second one. Problem is, the channel count goes all the way out to 174. And you reverse it, that means it's starting on an imaginary number out there, 15, 20 pixels out, and then comes back, so you have a bunch of pixels at the end of your string that don't light. That's why I can't do it there. Now, in the early Vixenlights programs, you weren't able to reverse just a single set. But in the ones, the modern ones, the 6 series, the 3.6, you actually can go in, highlight the ones you want, right click on them, and tell them to reverse the elements. So you could do that there and still make that work. So far as putting the 2 first and then the 1 second, just reverse them in Vixenlights instead of here on this controller. So I hope that clarified some things or either made you more confused. I'm not sure. But that's how the channel counts work. So that's why this one here had to then go to 28, because otherwise you would have been starting on channel 175 of Universe 26. And you always want to start on channel 1. You don't have to, but you want to. So let's get back to the other here now. So I hope I didn't confuse anybody too bad here. I tried to make it as simple as I could because I could not find a video when I did this, and this was all trial and error to get it to work right up to this point. Now I'm going to close this up and we'll go back to Vixen and our setup display. My 208, we're going to configure it. And remember what I told you about the universe numbers. We needed to write those down. So we're going to start now configuring this. And before I bring up that configure screen, I'm just going to show you where you get your numbers. Starting at kitchen peak 1. And if we add kitchen corner left, it comes out to 429. So that's going to be the size of group 1. So I'm going to right click, left click on configure. We're going to add. We're going to start on channel 1, universe 25. And its size, remember, 429. Then we'll go to 2. On 2, we have universe 27. It starts on 430 on the addresses because this one ended on 429. That's how big it was. So the next time, if you were to add these two, one of the old programs didn't add it up for you. This one does. But if you added these two together, whatever it ends up being here, it's 474. If we added these two together, that would come up with 903, so it would start then on 904. So you don't just keep adding this number to that number. No, you add these numbers, and that's how you get the start number. So the third one is 357, starts on universe 29. And one more. It starts on 1261. If you add up those top three, it would come up to 1260. That makes 1261 as the next starting number. Starts on universe 30, and it's 210. Now we want to change this to the 208 controller. If it's not already on your list, which mine is because I've been messing with this, but if it's not, all you got to do is just push the plus sign right here, type in the new one, OK it, and it'll add it to your list. So I'm going to cancel that. So this is now correct, 25, 27, 29, and 30 on the universes, and the size of each of the two plugs added together. I'm OKing it. So now we're going to patch them together. And if we highlight all these, it should add up to 1470 patch points, 1470 outputs. So all I have to do is patch them together. And that's it. So I'll OK it. That's how it saves. I'm going to close it up. And I'll be starting a video here in just a second of the house tonight when it's lit up and show you what it looks like. She wants the house lit up orange for Halloween. So these are just some random effects I put on here just to see how things looked. But it shows you how well everything works. Kind of busy out here tonight. That's just a chase. And that's an alternating red and orange. There's a little bit of Christmas. Reds and greens. And that one there is what they call spin. So it just gives you an idea how things look.